What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 403 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR, my co-host, Alex.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
We're doing it. We're doing the thing. We're going back to basics today.
We are.
We're doing, and I feel like I say that often, but we are doing we're trying to do a living up to our namesake. We started the show way back in the day thinking we're three nerds. We have opinions about stuff. It might be different from yours. Deal with it. And then we've done that like 3 times in 400 episodes.
Yeah.
It just turns out that we like a lot of the same stuff, and also I don't like conflict. But we're going to be doing
we realized that wasn't a sustainable concept.
Yeah, that too.
And it's more fun to talk to people cooler than us.
It's more entertaining and more sustainable, and I won't take things personally when people disagree with me, which I'm apt to do. But we're going back to that. We're gonna do a little bit of varying opinions today. We're gonna have a little bit of fun with it, and we have multiple guests joining us who we're gonna have on in a little bit to talk about a couple different things. Maybe have some opinions that vary.
You've heard all of our guests before. They're all returnees. You've heard them more than once.
Yep.
And they were fun the first few times, and they'll be fun this time too.
Yeah. So I guess we can just dive right into it. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Get people, okay, no more waiting. We're going to dive right in. Check out our first session, if you will, of varying opinions. All right, first, we're going to dive in. We have a very special guest joining us for this first part here. It's out of season. This is what the current times are doing to us.
Yeah.
We're out of season, we're out of sorts, but we're going to have some fun today though. So joining us right now is our
ladies and gentlemen. That's my best. That's what I got.
Kyle Pasciuti. Kyle, thank you so
Hey!
much for I feel bad because that's the intro you deserve, but that's not the intro I can give you. So I guess we'll just have to let you give it to Nope. Anyways,
I will go ahead and give it to myself.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So yeah. Anyways, Kyle's joining us. It is not I know you might be checking your calendars. You might be checking your watches. It is not October. Which it's a little weird.
That's unfortunate, isn't
it? I mean, that goes without saying.
It's okay. We could talk to you when it's not October.
It's
Okay.
true.
All right.
It's just it hasn't happened in a long time. So, but we're gonna have we figured we're gonna have a little bit of fun today. We've been talking with a lot of neat people recently. It's nice to get back to our roots and chat with some friends. Not that you aren't neat, but you know, you're pretty neat. But we're going to talk. We're trying to vary some opinions here. Getting back to basics.
Stick to our namesake. We've been doing a lot of interviews and reviews of things, and it's like, well, we haven't really varied our opinions, hence the name of the show. And just the other day, maybe last week, some real world stuff went down. We're not going to get into it because we're your escape from the real world.
Wait.
What?
This is 2020 and we're not. This is a podcast in 2020.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the coronavirus.
There's plenty of talk. There's a lot of it. There's a whole lot.
I'm good. Let's move on. Anything else? Literally.
And at one point in one of Kyle's posts, he's straight up just said, "I hate wrestling." And
yes,
I
did.
As a wrestling fan, I was like, "But I like wrestling." And Kyle's like, okay, but I hate it. And I'm like, well, not all wrestling is bad. And I decided we don't need to address this over the Book of Faces. We can just talk about it on a podcast.
One thing that I really appreciate about Alex and Kyle's relationship is I am not confrontational. I avoid confrontation at all costs. I don't do well in it. I'm the type of person, like if I start not necessarily fighting, but if I'm getting heated with someone, my face goes red and it's bad. My body and my emotions betray me. So when I see because Kyle and Alex have gone at it on Facebook like frequently, and they're just even like in the middle of it, they're just like, "Oh, hey man, how you doing? By the way, I love you. I want to give you a hug next time I see you."
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they're able to maintain this. Sometimes like, damn, they're going at it. But then like 2 minutes later, it's just water under the bridge. And I really admire that. I think it speaks to your friendship. Maybe you have that connection. You guys have flown to Texas
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
It's nice when you can tell when someone's not malicious. Is part of it. Yeah.
If Alex didn't kill me after Texas and leaving the Super Mario Brothers movie on while he slept by accident, then I'm good. We're good.
Sub question: is the Super Mario Brothers movie ever left on not by accident? Does anyone intentionally leave that on?
I'm sure somebody has that as their like sleep machine.
But anyways, so Kyle had posted that he doesn't like wrestling, which
no.
I get that. I get that totally. It's 2020. We all have our views, and we all have the internet to share them. But Alec, we've talked about wrestling in the past somewhat frequently, at least once a year. Shout out Matthew James. But we're gonna have a little bit of I don't know if you would call it a debate, but I'm interested in hearing what Kyle has to say because I am kind of reformed myself. When I was a kid, loved wrestling. I watched it at multiple days a week, every single week. Stone Cold Steve Austin was my hero. Bret Hart was like my idol. I wanted the glasses. I wanted to be the best there is. By the way, we're on a Zoom meeting right now. I tried to make my name the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Turns out too long. So I settled for Vince McMahon. And then I fell out of wrestling for the longest time, for a very, very long time. Didn't give a shit. Every now and then I'll watch like the pay-per-views, like if my friends are watching them, like, and they do a good job like recapping storylines. So it's like, oh, this person's the good guy, this person's the bad guy. Who's gonna win? Oh my god! And then, in fact, AEW is on tonight. Once we finish recording tonight, I'm meeting my friends on another Zoom meeting so I can go watch wrestling because that's what we do.
I don't know. I've got some very convincing points to make about why you shouldn't do that.
I'm interested, Alex. I'm gonna stop hogging the limelight. We have limited time here. Take it away. Do the thing.
Yeah, I just want to hear. Let's start with Kyle. Why do you hate wrestling?
Okay. I got a starting point.
Okay.
So I'm against wrestling. Alex is for it. Alex, is wrestling a sport or theater? Performance. Which is it?
It's a performance.
It's a performance.
Yeah.
Okay, so then why are we allowing our actors to damage their bodies when in any other performance, acting, anything like that, we would absolutely stop that from happening?
Because I didn't expect you to go here. So it's a form of media. It's a form of it's a performance. So therefore, it also people argue that it falls under First Amendment as freedom of speech. So they can do what they want. So if someone wants to put that up on display, no one's really going to stop them from doing that. Where it comes to other athletic associations, there's unions or there's athletic commissions. That's why UFC fighters get tested for fights. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of states that test wrestlers for all kinds of substances.
Now they test them.
Oh, they didn't in the past.
So now they're testing.
Uh-huh.
So like the conglomeration of the biggest wrestling, whatever you want to call it, literally made their way to the top, bought out or destroyed every bit of competition by fueling their wrestlers with steroids. But now we just give them a pass.
So, you're saying they should have been held accountable for all that time?
Yeah. 100%. They are making money off the backs of their performers. The performers, I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the performers themselves, they're paid handsomely, but guess what? They also have to get their own hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. They also have to pay their own airfare. Are they covered under WWE insurance even? Are they under their own? Is it like good luck? You know?
Recently up to today, I'm not sure. In the past, Mick Foley, it's in his book how he had to like work real hard to try and get himself health insurance. Because he would tell, companies what he does, and they're all like, no, we're not handling you. But he had to go through Lloyd's of London, which is the company that like, what, they insured J-Lo's legs or something, and they do all of it, or butt, I guess. I don't remember. But he had to get it through Lloyd's. And yeah, it's definitely not easy. And there's always it's a really big problem for wrestlers to either try and make it by their personality, their physicality, their ability to draw a crowd. And they're leaning towards that a lot more now, even though Vince has always just liked big dudes. He likes big dudes who are really tall and really meaty. And that's who he hires, and that's who he's wanted, and that's who gets top billing.
So you're saying that all of the former wrestlers who succeeded sort of in life by getting out of wrestling and going into the entertainment, Vince McMahon saw that and was like, oh, we should go in that direction.
What, by making movies now? Or
by making movies, by saying, oh, it's less about the physicality, right? Wrestling isn't physicality. It's just a drama.
He definitely had to get people to convince him of that. And it's what he was trying to make in the 80s, he could not do now.
Right.
But they've made enough money and developed enough where he could start branching out and making WWE produced movies,
and buying the XFL.
But making it himself. He didn't buy that. He just created that.
Oh, he made that?
Oh yeah, that was his from beginning.
Great.
That was his 10 years ago.
So now the WWE, is it still WWE?
Yeah.
Is the entertainment portion of the business, and the XFL is the sports. Got it.
Well, the XFL
I see what he did there.
The XFL just came back, and now they're gone.
And it's gone.
They had, 5 games?
One thing I wanted to clarify here. So, Kyle, do you hate do you not like wrestling, or do you not like the WWE specifically for what the WWE has done to wrestling?
Back in the day, I watched a few matches. I watched probably what was the greatest match of all time, where Mick Foley got thrown off the cage onto the thing and just
which time
should have died. And then a couple years ago, I watched the match where, was it the Undertaker? Somebody threw the roof of an ambulance.
That sounds familiar. There's ambulances, and
Anyway.
sometimes people get thrown into them.
Okay,
sometimes they get flipped over.
Yeah,
as they do.
I think that the best thing any wrestler can do is get out of wrestling. I think that Hulk Hogan, I would watch Mr. Mom even after everything with Hulk Hogan. I would still watch that. Look at The Rock. He's like the most successful thing to ever come out of there.
Yeah.
I have a particular beef with the WWE. I don't think that there's any reason for wrestling, for backyard wrestling, for these other companies who are trying to essentially imitate what the WWE has a stranglehold on. I'm not going to say they didn't invent it, but they're the ones, The only ones I maybe would give some respect to would be like the luchadors, because that's more like ballet than anything. They've taken that and escalated it. As far as I don't watch, that stuff, but as far as I understand, that's more like ballet. It's more of a performance. It's choreographed. It's all this. They're not trying to go, sure, they rile up the crowd a little bit with the, I'm from so-and-so, I'm from here, from there, whatever. But it's, you didn't have steroids present there. you have these people who are almost like sumo wrestlers who are bad guy, whatever, but it's theater. It's active
they're
theater.
respected, but they're also hated. Like,
sure, great.
There's legacies of Mr. Wrestling number 2, I think, who was stabbed to death in a shower because of how his matches went.
Okay,
I'm not sure if it was that one or different ones. There was also a wrestler who I believe became mayor of his town and never took his mask off. He was also starred in movies wearing his luchador mask. Literally never took it off.
But are the luchadors, are they imitating Jerry Springer and hitting each other with chairs?
Unsure. I haven't watched that much of classic lucha matches.
So that's kind of my
around.
stance. Is like my kind of stance on it, and sort of specifically with wrestling, but like with sports in general, is that it needs to be. If you don't have the honor, if you don't have the respect of all this stuff, and we're going to get back to wrestling in a moment, but the NFL, you're just buying players. It's just money. It's just a gamble. It's to me, it's no different than playing the stock market. If give me a good old fashioned kickball game against rival schools, that's what I want to see. Give me, even dodgeball. Great, cool, fine. Beam the other person in the head. But you're putting tacks out on the floor. You're doing all this. You're at the point at which somebody needs to hide a razor blade in their palm in order to make a living. You need to stop.
That's how they put on a show.
For what it's worth, and it's hard. I cannot be considered a expert in wrestling, as I have been into wrestling for about 6 months now. And I'm not a fan of WWE's product. It just does not entertain me.
But you're going to go watch it.
No. I watch AEW, which is a completely different organization. They're brand new within the last year.
Okay.
Essentially made up of former WWE people and also people who have historically said, no, we don't want to work for WWE. We want to do our own thing. And their thing is doing it the right way. And, no one owns wrestling.
So it's the Image Comics of wrestling.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's a tough way of putting it. Image was made up of the 8 guys that left Marvel. But, I mean, I don't think there's a Rob Liefeld in the AEW to make it terrible.
But for what it's worth, wrestling has, at least from what I've seen, has taken a turn away from the unnecessary dangers. And in one of the first AEW events, the kind of president EVP guy, this guy Cody, took an unprotected chair shot to the head. Guy came up, took a chair, hit him in the head with it. You're not supposed to do that anymore. Right. And he caught a ton of shit from wrestling fans. They were like, hey, we get it. We get why you did it, but don't do that. It's not worth it. The CTE, the injuries, stop. And the blading typically you don't see much anymore. Typically even bleeding, it's just oh God, he's bleeding. That's not, they don't want to see it a lot of the times. Typically if someone's bleeding or getting some color, is that the term?
Juicing.
That's steroids.
No, it's Mick will turn to Vader and be like, I'm juicing pretty good here, huh?
But I think typically they try to stay away from that, because I know back in the day it was a lot more prevalent, a lot more frequent, because I don't know if it was because they needed that shock factor or they needed that wow, but today there's a lot heavier focus on keeping the performers.
Okay, so cutting in real quick, a thing happened. We recorded this with Kyle. We had a great discussion, great debate, and everything was peachy. And then we found out that we lost half of it. So we're going to pick up and we're going to do our best to kind of talk about it some more. if we happen to repeat ourselves, you know, it might happen. But hopefully we're not going to. We're just going to continue talking about wrestling. I'm going to pick up. We were talking about chair shots and how chair shots in the past used to be everywhere. It was an easy way to get a pop, to get a reaction, to get, you know, maybe some color on the television. And I mean, chair shots still exist to this day. However, it is kind of an unwritten rule. I don't know if it's a written rule, but you don't take a chair shot to the head. You don't take unprotected shots to the head, the face, whatever. Yeah,
that's become an established rule in WWE.
Right.
So it's been years since that's happened.
You don't do it.
Right.
It's a no-no.
It's assault. It is what it is.
It's also very dangerous, and there's a lot of, you know, CTE and all that underlying stuff that eventually comes along with years and years of multiple unprotected chair shots, you know, steel crashing into your skull. So it is one thing that they have improved upon in recent years. I do know that there was and the fans have kind of embraced that too, with when there is an unprotected chair shot, like at one of AEW's first events, a lot of people were very upset, saying it was unnecessary, it was uncalled for. You shouldn't have to rely on stuff like that to get crowd reactions. What are you thinking? Don't do that. And you know, it's at least it's good to see the fans kind of rallying with that, like protect the
talent, the people,
protect the talent,
the human beings. We'd rather have them, you know, be able to perform longer than have their brain shrink or swell or become as damaged as we've now learned that happens to people.
And if they're actors, they should be able to act it out instead of actually doing it.
So when we say unprotected, in the past there's times where someone will take the chair shot and their arms are by their sides. And then there's other times where like they manage to get their hand up over their forehead just in time where the blunt of the chair hits their hand. And then they act like it hit them in the head. Maybe they blade, maybe they don't. But even now, like, they do less of the hand work. They just don't hit people in the head with the chair anymore. They'll still do the back or the leg or, you know, all the things they've done with chairs in the past, just not so much the head work anymore. But, yeah, I mean, their job is to sell. And if you're not selling right, like, they'll let you know.
So my problem with this is that even as they're putting in these rules, right, as the fans are giving outrage, as people are legitimately getting hurt, going to the hospital, killing their entire families, even as all this stuff is happening, sort of the name of the game is that if you can figure out a way to get around the rules, you're going to become a more popular wrestler. They, you know, back in the day, it was, how can I make myself bleed? Then it was, oh, can I take a chair shot to the head? You know, if you're treating it as entertainment, you shouldn't be entertaining people by getting hurt, right? And if you're treating it as a sport, you need to protect your athletes. And in all of this, you've got these major corporations who have gone out of their way to make sure that they're not taking any of the blame for this, or at least as little as possible, but still making money off of these people.
So sometimes it's not even a major corporation. It is a very small independent league that is like barely scraping by, but they need to get eyes on the product. And that's where you end up getting a dive off of 30-foot high scaffolding through 3 tables that are stacked on top of each other. Yeah.
Would either of you pay to see somebody commit suicide live?
No.
Okay, so let's walk that back.
Hang on, I'm still thinking.
Okay, Jeremy. Would you pay to see somebody have a limb amputated live?
Okay, so is the limb real?
Oh yeah. No. This is a real limb, and there's no reason to need to amputate it.
No, I would not want to see that.
So how far back do we work that then? Would you pay to see somebody, cut themselves? Well, in the past, that's essentially what wrestling fans have done.
Well, okay, so no one is buying a ticket to watch people like actually cut themselves. They're going to watch a match. If someone happens to bleed during the match, I mean, it depends on your fans. Some fans are bloodthirsty, some just want to be entertained. A lot of ECW performers got popular by showing a lot of blood. And a lot of ECW fan base, like, that's what they wanted to see, and that's what made for a good match. But like that, as you're saying, like, yeah, that doesn't really transfer to the big time, to performers that need to perform night after night. Like, you can't keep doing it if you need stitches repeatedly, or you're unconscious, or you have your concussions. Because they need to keep working. They have fans. If they do a show in Charlotte, they have fans in Atlanta tomorrow night that they had to go perform for. And they can't do it if, they've lost 5 pints of blood in one match. So,
right. They don't do that night after night. I'm not saying that even now that they do it after night. They do smaller matches night after night in the build up to this one big, I don't know.
Yeah. Their pay-per-view.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And the pay-per-view, and that's where it happens, and that's where they're putting all this out there. It's still irresponsible. You're still building up an audience to come see Bloodsport.
So, our friend Ty covered this a long time ago because he's a sideshow performer, he's a sideshow freak, and he's done shows where, like, he has his book show where he does, his sideshow tricks. He jumps onto broken glass. They swallow swords. He breathes ball of flame. And so there's a possibility that maybe they could get hurt doing that, but people still want to see the sideshow performers do it. And sometimes they do kind of get hurt. And there's other performers that are coming up doing similar acts, but like they're doing like, if you have $20, you could staple it to my forehead and things like that. And so, as I was saying, some performers can recognize who's doing it like for the bucks. And you'll be able to call them out and be like, hey, dude, $1,000, cut off a finger. Like, how far are you willing to go to make this money right now? Like, how about you just stick to your talents and be an actor, and do your show. And so this is where you're going with it, where it's like, well, it's just going to escalate and get more and more violent. Like, yeah, for some people, but that's across many forms of entertainment. I had another direction I was going to go with this. I forget where it was now.
Well, while you're working on that, I am a big fan of Penn and Teller.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I listen to Penn Jillette's podcast regularly. And he has discussed this a couple times where they won't do a trick if it's more dangerous than sitting on their couch. The bullet catch that they've done.
Yeah.
People who've attempted the bullet catch in the past, I think they said there's like 6 or 8 people who've actually died on stage doing that trick.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with a way to do it safer. The only exception where he has this was a bit where he was juggling a real broken bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be, the kind of glass that, doesn't break to razor sharp edges. And one night it just happened to break in the way, and to show that it at the end of the trick, to show that it's not supposed to, that it wasn't actually a dangerous trick, that everybody was fooled, because that was the entire point of the trick. He slices his neck with it. And this one night there was a sharp edge unexpectedly, and he sliced his neck, and the next day they cut that trick because it's unethical. Either you're telling them directly what they're there to see, or you're lying to them. In that case with Penn, he had accidentally lied to them because the trick was not supposed to be dangerous, and he felt it was unethical, so he removed it. On the other hand, if you're paying to see that, you need to really question your morals. And that's where I stand on that. You know,
there's a really fine line, like when, like on Wednesday nights, me and my buddies, we get together on Zoom because that's what we have to do now. We get together on Zoom and we all watch wrestling together. And like typically at least a couple times a night, there will always be one or two spots where it's like something will happen and then all four of us will all go, "Ooh, man," at the same time, because it's that fine line of, I know this is fake and I know the things they're doing have been rehearsed and practiced, but every now and then a move happens or a spot happens where it's like, oh damn, that most likely hurt in real life too. And it's like that not knowing, because like they're obviously, after everything they have to show, oh my god, that hurts so bad, my back, oh, I'm grabbing my back. But then sometimes it's like, is he really grabbing his back? Is he like, and like you watch for the ref, you wait to see if the ref's making the X, you know, like doing an E-stop.
Yeah.
And it's that really fine line of like acting like you're hurt and getting hurt. You know, it's I get where you're coming from, Kyle, too, because I've heard a lot of the, like Penn Jillette, especially when he talks about like psychics and stuff. I love listening to Penn talk about psychics. Because he just trashes them, and he says like it's just like fooling your audience like that is just irresponsible, and it's immoral, and so I think. Oh, go ahead.
So if those moments didn't exist, right, then you would 100% know that wrestling was purely a rehearsed form of entertainment. And I don't think in this recording we've brought up the sumo wrestlers yet.
No.
But it's a piece of art akin to what ballerinas or sumo wrestlers are doing, where there isn't actual danger. To me, I don't know a single wrestling fan who, after a big match, haven't gone in, hey, do you think that one thing was real? Like, I know it's fake, but I think that one thing was real. And that's what I hear all of them talking about. If that was gone, then wrestling becomes a theatrical performance, not lying to the audience, and I would be fine with it. But because they've perpetuated that, I disagree with it.
But I'll say that lie, that's what is part of the entertainment. Like, if we know that Sting and Jeff Hardy actually hate each other and really want to hurt each other, if we're fooled by that, then we'll watch the match to see if they do it. If we know they're pals and they share beers after the show, then it takes an element of entertainment away from it. But also, there's fans who know that they get along anyway, because we know they have to work together. And there's some fans that don't. And in this day and age, the information's everywhere. Anywhere you look, you can see all the evidence. There's a show training people how to wrestle. And so, like, you're watching the characters because they're actors. You're not really watching the people who aren't putting on a show. You're watching the actors perform as their characters. They're stuntmen. They're martial artists. Like,
yeah, and the guys on bum fights get along in the alleyway just fine until somebody throws $100 at them.
It's a weird comparison.
I don't have an argument for that.
Like, it sucks, but there are times where like the guys agree, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna open up my forehead the hard way, like with your elbow, and I'm gonna sit there and take it. Ugh. And that's what he's getting paid for. Like, it's not a shock to the two guys doing it. It shouldn't be. If it is, that's a problem. But I'm gonna go hard here. You ready? And you are morally okay with paying to watch that. Well, the incident I'm talking about was Brock Lesnar and Who was it? Jar, do you remember?
Which one?
Brock Lesnar when he elbowed
Braun
Legend.
Strowman.
No, the Legend Killer.
Oh,
Randy Orton, that guy. I just hate Brock Lesnar in general. So that, and like even other wrestlers didn't know they were doing that. So like Chris Jericho went to where the entrance is, like to go confront Brock as he was leaving, to be like, "What the hell are you doing?" Not knowing like that was part of the bit, and they both agreed to it. But I don't like a lot of what Brock does, but that was in their script. And that's part of what wrestling is. Like you take your punches.
So the script, so you brought up the script,
Yeah.
which was probably reviewed, I'm going to assume, by the WWE. They approved that. They signed off on it.
What was one of the top guys' ideas? So.
Oh, good. Okay. So they're actually perpetuating this. They're telling these people like, hey, we can't tell you to actually hurt each other, but, actually hurt each other. This just sounds great. Let me tell you. Wow.
That's how they put butts in seats.
I will say, and kind of to take Kyle's side here.
Yeah.
Just to devil's advocate and be a real piece of shit. So I grew up with wrestling. I loved wrestling. Watched it every day. I already pointed that out. Me and my friends would imitate wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Or we did wrestling moves on each other. We didn't go full on backyard wrestling, like power bombing each other through tables and like through light fixtures and stuff. But like, it's like, hey man, lay down. Let me put you in a sharpshooter for a minute.
Right.
Because it made you feel like Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, it was my childhood friend. His name was Mike, and I had him in a sharpshooter, and it was awesome because sharpshooters rule. And then his brother came up to me out of nowhere and hit me with a DDT, like a real straight up DDT. And my you know what's supposed to happen when a DDT, like in real life, if you hit someone with a DDT, you are crashing their head into the ground, forehead first.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what happened to me. And I slammed my face into the ground, and then my front teeth, my upper front teeth, jammed down into my lip, busted my lip wide open. I was bleeding everywhere. It was awful, and I ran home crying.
As kids, we copied Jackass stunts. But every single episode, every movie starts and ends with "Don't do this at home."
Mm-hmm.
Which, to be fair, wrestling did too. I can still hear Shawn Michaels every single time in my head say, "I've suffered over a dozen concussions,
broken
every
ribs,
single time,
broken leg." Yeah, I remember that one.
And that's I would say the biggest comparison to me is wrestling and Jackass. Like that's the comparison I would make. Right. It's not ballet, it's not theater, it's Jackass. And those Jackass guys have, it's the televised sideshow freak like you were talking about, Alex, where they have professionals, they have insurance that the company has paid for, and every single thing they do is signed off on by that insurance company. Before they film the movie, before they film the stunts,
well, the movie,
they go through and say, here's exactly what we're going to do.
The first season, nah.
Well, yeah, the first season, fair. And there's still a moral component of you're watching people hurt themselves. Mm-hmm. And, you can't tell me there are parts in that in those movies where you go, I shouldn't be watching this. This is bad. This is wrong. Steve-O, why?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things Steve-O did. You could say Steve-O, why, but...
Yeah, and there are bits that those guys say no to.
Yeah.
Right.
They might egg each other on a little bit, but I don't...
So the one with the riot...
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Where they shot like the plastic ball bearings, and one of the guys was like, "I'm about to have a panic attack. I'm not doing this."
Yeah,
I don't blame him.
I think that was Bam.
No, Bam did it.
Johnny was all for it. Johnny was psyched.
Johnny was all about it. It was Bam, Johnny, and Ryan Dunn, and then the guy who didn't want to do it was Dave, I think.
Oh, Dave England.
I think so.
Was it
but-
Dave? Danger Aaron, maybe.
No, I don't think Aaron was in that one.
Okay.
I think only the 3 of them were there.
It was supposed to be 4 of them, but one of them didn't. So it ended up just being Bam, Dunn, and Knoxville. But
So
I couldn't do the sweat cocktail. I couldn't do that one. Everything else I could watch, but sweat cocktail, nope.
But so I understand your point, where when it's a matter of reality, it shouldn't be okay. But when it's fictional, that's fine. Like watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where he's chainsawing people or putting the girl on a meat hook. Like, that's okay. I can cheer that on, but I can't cheer on a guy punching a guy in the corner of the ring and counting to 10.
If it's fictional, it's the difference between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Cannibal Holocaust. For those of you who don't know, Cannibal Holocaust has some real animals that get murdered during the filming. If it is completely fake, it is completely an athletic, I have no problem with high school wrestling. I have no problem, and I don't know how much we got into this, but the sumo wrestling. I think sumo wrestlers are pure athletes, pure entertainment. That's 100% wholesome. Okay.
Yeah.
But this level of what can we get away with? We've got corporations we maybe have corporations sponsoring it, or we don't have any oversight at all. And people are getting hurt. People are imitating it getting hurt. People are trying to get away with stuff. The athletes, the performers are not taken care of. They're viewed as expendable as much as possible. We're going to use them as much as we can. I remember you were saying that they've started to take care of them. Well, they started to take care of them, in my view, because they want to get more time out of them. They're looking at them as a piggy bank.
A commodity,
yeah.
So
they're not actually worried about these people.
The really violent stuff you're talking about happens, I'll say, less than 5% of the time. If there 50 matches could happen, no one for the other 95% of the time, no one goes out there with intention to do this damage. If it happens, it's an accident. Accidents happen in stunts too. Accidents happen in martial arts. But
every time there's an accident, there is a review of how to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
There's an investigation. There's all this stuff.
Oh, people have been let go because they can't take care of the person they're working with. They get talked to, or they get their contract is done. They get let go. So if they can't protect their partner.
The one you were talking about where was it Mankind? I can never remember his million names.
Mick Foley.
Foley.
Mankind. Yeah.
Got hit by The Rock.
Yeah.
More than he was supposed to.
Oh yeah.
Was there a lawsuit there?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Uh-huh.
That's the pressure of okay, he files a lawsuit, he's kicked out. And now people want The Rock to run for president when he assaulted a man on camera.
Let me go back to some other stuff.
That's devastating to my argument. I'm not going to.
Yeah, there's some stuff that just ends up happening. I mean, I don't really have a good explanation for it.
I mean, that moment has gone from remember when Rock hit Mankind with 11 unprotected chair shot? Now it's we don't really talk about that anymore. Let's it went from people used to idolize that moment to no, that's not, nope. That's an example of what we don't do anymore.
Right. And Jay, did we get in recording, JR, were you talking about that new wrestling? Was it TNA something?
I always bring up AEW whenever I talk about wrestling because I'm an AEW mark.
Okay.
But shameless, But yeah, I mean, I was we did talk about it a little bit and how it seems like they're trying to do things the right way.
Right.
They
and-
want to have good matches without as much of the drama and storylines that WWE does.
Oh, I think it should be. I think it should be all drama and storylines, and nobody gets hurt, and it's a known fact that this is, I'm gonna finish watching The Punisher on Netflix, and then I'm gonna watch this, and there's no difference. Or it should be a show of athleticism that is akin to ballet.
A lot of
Why
these
not
guys are great gymnasts.
So stick to that. Get the performance out of that.
They do. Like I said, it's less than 5%. So The Rock doesn't do all the flippy flips. There's 20 guys. There's 20 guys who do great flippy flips and manage to not hurt themselves and not hurt the guy they're working with. What?
Sorry, go ahead.
And they do these awesome displays of power. They can lift 3 people at a time and do these power slams. And it's that spectacle that I want to watch. It's they're the peak of human physique. Either they're huge and strong or they're small and just can dance around the ring like they're completely weightless. And it's entertaining. Like, we watch martial arts movies because we want to be cool and throw a kick and a punch and do spinny jump things. And this is a way to watch that more frequently because it's live, because it's not the same VHS tape over and over again like that, that we had to watch when we were kids, because we can go to a show and watch it actually happen in front of us. And it's fun. A lot of the indie shows are made and booked to be fun. The wrestlers have fun. The viewers have fun. And there's very few of them that are made to be violent bloodfests. And it's not that they're sent out there to hurt each other, because then they can't go work the next night and they can't go home to their families. I want to go watch them as many times as possible.
Good. I am glad for you. My issue comes in that, when those 5% of the time issues happen, why aren't the fans holding these things accountable? Why aren't lawsuits happening? Why aren't new rules being put in place until it goes way overboard and people end up in the hospital? That 5% to me, still to this day, is what I hear wrestling fans talking about. I haven't heard, even on this podcast, you're not bringing up that flippy flip. I hear over and over and over. Remember that match where, me and names, I'm so bad.
Mankind fell off the top of the cage. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one that keeps coming up.
Okay. Hang on. What are you talking to, current fans or old fans? Because there's a dude we talk about right now whose shtick is putting his hands in his pockets and gently tapping the other guy's shins with his feet. They're called the devastating kicks. And he barely taps the other dude in the knee with this kick. And the fans love it. It's hilarious. It's entertaining. No one's getting hurt from that. And that's what's fun right now. I've seen highlight reels of that, and they're pop up more often than Mick Foley falling off the top of the cage 15 years ago.
So are you telling me that nobody in the past, let's say 2 years from the WWE, has ended up in the hospital or majorly injured without there being a lawsuit or an investigation or changes? Can you say that?
No, they keep it personal.
There you go. Got it.
Who was Jared? Do you remember who Feed Me More was? The big dude who was always feed me more.
My mic was muted. Ryback
almost hurt CM Punk pretty bad. And they made it backstage, and CM Punk was he punked Ryback out real hard. And he's like, either you're trying to kill me or you're a complete dumbass. Which is it?
I'm a dumbass.
And he's like, I'm a dumbass.
I just heard that the other day.
And he had to settle it his own way. He's left the company. I mean, if anyone's...
I think Ryback was released.
Ryback was, he was fired. CM Punk quit or was fired too. It's depends who you hear it from. But if anyone's come close to suing the WWE, it was CM Punk.
Yep.
He's absolutely been the biggest advocate for how they do their job. He was featured on John Oliver last week tonight when they did a segment about WWE, and he had got a concussion and the doctors thought he had the flu, so they would just Z-pack him. And there was a night where he shit his pants on SmackDown, and he tweeted out, "Just shit my pants, please retweet."
No, it was just shit my britches.
Just shit my britches.
I can't remember if it was just shit my britches on live television, please retweet, or if it was just shit my britches, please retweet. But it's legit. You can find it online. There's poop in the ring.
So CM Punk goes through all this, quits.
Yeah.
He sued the doctor, I believe.
Yeah.
If I recall, I can't remember.
So he's right in this situation.
CM
and
Punk?
is he wrestling anymore?
He tried to be a MMA fighter.
He tried to do UFC. It did not work out well for him at all.
No. And
now he doesn't wrestle, but he works technically for Fox for a show that WWE. It's like we're going to talk about WWE, and he's on that show now. So I don't know if he works for WWE, if he technically works for Fox. I don't know which one he's actually contracted by, but he's involved with wrestling, yes.
Right. So again, another example of a person whose best career move as a wrestler was to get out of wrestling.
For his body, yeah.
I believe he would go back though. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see him appear on AEW at some point. Like, he's done a lot to preserve his body.
Yeah, and it sounds like AEW is much more moral, ethical. I still have, I'm not interested in watching it, just like I don't watch boxing and UFC fighting. But at least that one sounds more ethical. I wasn't aware of it before we started this podcast. But just... you asked me if my main thing was WWE or wrestling in general. And I'm not saying stop all wrestling. I'm saying the WWE all of their money should be taken away from them. And Vince McMahon should die in a gutter. For everything he has done against the wrestlers, against their health, that him and Linda McMahon need to be sued beyond belief.
They do have a rehab policy. Like, I know it's not enough, and there's a lot to say they could have caused a lot of the people's problems. But Stephanie's on record on some interview where they're talking about
Stephanie?
Huh?
Who is Stephanie?
Stephanie McMahon. She helps run the company.
Vince's daughter.
Yeah.
Vince's daughter. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where I forget who exactly they're talking about. I think it might be Scott Hall, where it's like, yeah, he has a drug problem. We've tried to deal with it. We've sent him to rehab 6 times. And if he has to go a 7th, and they've paid for all 6 times. They've paid for every one of his rehab adventures. And if he needs a 7th, they'll pay for that one too. And so that's, I don't know if that's because he's like was one of their biggest stars. Because a lot of the other times there's been interviews where, someone has been talking to Vince and saying, well, how come you don't support this or you don't provide insurance, whatever? And Vince goes, they've worked for plenty of other places before they got here. They could have gotten hurt or could have had these concussions in the other 3 leagues they were in before we even heard of them. So he has ways to back out of it. So I can't play the right note of like, do they support them or do they not? Like, yes, no, they do, but they don't.
Well, if we're calling them athletes, which we should in this instance, anytime, somebody gets drafted to the Patriots, they go through a full diagnostic checkup to make sure that any damage that happens to them while they're there is happening there and wasn't previous, damage. But at the same time, like, again, that just sounds like what they're being forced to do following being called out, on the resurrection of Jake the Snake. After that documentary, and I watched it on your suggestion, and it was a great documentary. WWE got called out for not taking care of these people. So great, we're going to make a public statement. This guy, we've sent him to rehab 6 times. That makes up for all the other stuff we're doing. Cool. It's not caring. It's commodity. How the amount that they would have to do to change my mind after decades and decades and decades of this same behavior is astronomical.
Well,
they should die.
Triple H is in line to inherit the company.
Is that just a storyline? We will never know.
No, he pretty much runs parts of the company now.
He got demoted, though.
Did he? Damn it! Don't do this to me. Is he divorced?
No, he's not. I don't know if it was kayfabe or part of a storyline or something, but all the Triple H demoted from his head of talent, whatever. I have no idea. I admittedly don't follow WWE like religiously. I know bits and pieces of some of the main storylines, and that's about it. I mean, you're gonna find no argument from me on I don't enjoy WWE. I don't like it. It doesn't entertain me personally. If that's it used to when I was a kid, but not so much anymore. But Alex, do you have anything else?
I'm not sure if it was brought up in our first half, but hasn't been brought up this time around. Where Kyle's mentioned unionizing, and
yes,
and that's wouldn't be a bad idea, but like Hollywood with SAG, you can't really control people's salaries. If Hollywood wants to pay Angelina Jolie $80 million and pay her co-star $30,000, then I mean the union can't really do anything about that. Because you're paying them what they're worth. So you want to pay your jobber, you can't really argue what Goldberg's getting paid. Would we like to? Yeah, maybe we don't need to pay him per appearance or per match when they don't show up, or when they only work 3 times a year. Maybe they don't deserve $20 million, but that could help regulate how often they work, how often they're allowed time to heal. But at the same time, the wrestlers don't want to stop, because as long as you're off camera, you're getting forgotten and you're not making sales on merch. You need to be on camera as much as possible.
And you have these wrestlers who've gotten up to that level, and then they get signed by the WWE, and they're like, "Oh, this is a lot of money." And the WWE turns around and goes, "Yes, and you're paying for your own insurance, and you're going to pay to fly yourself to all these different locations." Because we don't cover that. You are contractually required to be there. We'll help you set up the flight tickets, but we're not paying for them.
When CM Punk was champ, he got them to give him his own bus. W drove him to matches in his own private bus.
Right, and they've got how many wrestlers go into each one, but they each have to figure out their own way.
Yeah, they team up a lot.
It's stupid stuff like that. Call them entertainers, call them athletes, either or, doesn't matter. They should be unionized somehow.
Jared, do we think they'd want to be transported like a team? Like, do the Patriots actually fly in their own jet, or get bused to their matches, to their games?
Their match. Yes, they do. They have their own enormous jet that they fly on.
Yeah. So, the unionization thing, it allows a lot of protection. Even even if you don't specifically say unionization, you just have to sort of look at this and go, again, wrestlers or entertainers, pick one and start to create standards for that. You know, there's no standards among any of this. You know, the Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, they have certain standards that they all hold to. And then the little leagues look to those and go, well, this is what they're doing. Well, we should be doing that too. So if WWE puts in standards, then it starts to filter down, and eventually the backyard wrestler go, you know, no, you can't do that to my brother or sister because they wouldn't be allowed in the bigger stuff, and we have to abide by those rules. It's systemic. I hate wrestling.
I will say, I've never seen fluorescent tube light bulbs in WWE, but they litter the independents. You could literally pave roads with the amount of broken fluorescent light bulbs that are used on smaller shows.
And I think in the terms of morality, you know, of if you're paying for something, then you are technically partially responsible for it. Anybody who's going to these things, anybody who's watching them, anybody who's paying for them really needs to think hard about that.
Well, I imagine that does happen. If a dad brings his kids to an independent show and they get too violent, or like the heel is too mean or says the wrong stuff to the crowd, I don't see why he wouldn't post on the Facebook or the Twitter or send an email being like, we're never come back to the show. I can't bring my kids to this anymore. And that might change the performers that the booker hires.
You're asking the fans to regulate the performance?
That's exactly what they do. That's entirely what the industry is. It's the performers making the fans react. And if the fans react, then the performer gets hired. If the fans never react, then the performer does not get hired anymore.
No, I'm saying the you're asking the fan feedback to regulate what is or is not allowed. So if somebody, you know, if a wrestler gets up there and uses the N-word, but nobody says anything about it, then that's fine because nobody said anything about it.
The promoter can't control every single thing the wrestlers do. So like if the promoter doesn't want that, then he won't hire him back.
You're going down a real slippery slope here. Like real slippery. So it's essentially whatever we can get away with and still put butts in seats is okay.
So okay, you cannot accuse the entire industry of that thinking. That's like a couple of dudes who were assholes. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like at one time that was the Dudley Boys. Like they went out there to be offensive. Were they offensive enough? Were they too offensive? And like, did that build their character? But not everyone goes out there to perform with the intent of pissing off as many people as possible, because they know they still have to make money somehow. They want to get hired back. If you go too far, like, you should have some of your own morality. It's not about getting hired. It's about, you know, being a decent person anyway and being a good performer. And you should know what boundaries are.
Right. But what you just said is that anything should be allowed.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
That's absolutely not what I said.
Okay, so if the performer is okay with it, the promoter's okay with it, the audience is okay with it, but what they did was go out there and put a weed whacker to someone's chest, then that's still okay or no? You there?
I don't think the fans expected that to actually happen. And to see the aftermath, I think everyone involved regretted it happening.
I think a lot of people would, but I'm saying in the instance that happens, that there's no audience complaints, that the promoter goes, oh, we've got more tickets selling for next week than last week, and both performers were okay with it happening.
He's going to run out of performers. Because people aren't going to want to work with him.
That's not the question. All of these things line up and everybody's okay with it. That somehow makes it okay?
If they're consenting?
Yeah.
We're getting to a thing that isn't about wrestling anymore. It's about performance violence. Like, there's other avenues where this happens.
You're not wrong. We're starting to get into more of a theological discussion.
Yeah.
And that may be a good place to end.
Well, I think we can all agree that wrestling kicks ass, right, guys?
No.
I do want to mention, I ended it last time and I want to just get it out there for the first time again. I highly encourage you to check out Gentleman Jarvis. He's the sweetest man in wrestling and also the sweetest man in the world. That's his own moniker. He wears a mask. He's very polite when he comes out. He shakes the hand of every single person in the front row. And his finishing move is he picks up his opponent in a cradle and rocks them to sleep. And then he gently lays them down. And the referee...
What league is this in?
He's an independent, so he just travels around to whoever will hire him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not in like one specific federation. He's like, he would like to get a tryout in AEW. He has wrestled wrestlers that are in AEW. But he's been to a bunch of places. I believe he's centered in California. But
yeah,
there are a lot of places that do silly things like this. There's a hypnotism move. There's a dance breakdown that someone does, and it's part of the show. And sometimes the fans dig it, and sometimes they don't. But Jarvis is one of the ones that it works on, and I think he's great. He would never hit a man with a chair.
And that I will support. I support entertainers who are doing things responsibly. I support sumo wrestlers. It sounds like, and again, I'm just going to keep going back, JR, the whatever league. AEW, yeah, me and names. All those sound fine to me. I'm not against responsible athletic performance, entertainment performance, all that kind of stuff. But I don't see enough of it in the industry. I don't see enough kickback against when stuff goes wrong. That's my beef with wrestling, beyond just not enjoying it's for you guys, not for me.
I can't complain against that. The fact that, when things go, would CM Punk sue Ryback for messing up a move that bad? Should he be allowed to?
Yeah. If it's an intentional, obviously there's a million different questions that go into that, but the answer should always be from the get-go, there should be an investigation. There should be nothing should be off the table until we know the specifics.
Jar, do you know if the guy who had to fight Brock Lesnar sued UFC when they let him fight when he tested positive?
Mark Hunt.
Yeah.
I don't know the fallout of that. I do know that Mark Hunt was very vocal in that he thought that, Lesnar's entire purse should have gone to him and all that stuff. I do, it was overturned by the athletic commission. So it doesn't count as a loss to him. It just counts as a no contest. So his official record doesn't show a loss.
Well, that fight shouldn't have happened if he popped positive.
Are you talking positive for steroids?
Yeah.
And we're back to that.
Well, that's
Well,
when
well,
Lesnar
that's-
went back to the UFC. He had one random fight against this guy Mark Hunt, and he tested positive for a whole lot of steroids.
But it's a matter of what you were getting at with, like, if this goes wrong, should one person be allowed to sue the company or sue his opponent?
Well, it should be, both. It's the company's responsibility to maintain a fair playing field and maintain the safety of their performers.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than NFL players suing the NFL for concussions. Not doing enough to protect the players. Again, it's a case-by-case basis for what happens, but the only way we're going to get change is by holding people accountable. It's the only way it gets better.
Yeah. Well, I think I still like wrestling. Kyle,
I appreciate.
do me a favor. Don't watch any Dark Side of the Ring episodes on Vice, please. Just don't watch any of those.
I got plenty of other stuff to watch.
Good.
We're in lockdown, so it's Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Disney Plus all day.
Yeah, you don't need any more.
Wrestling.
You don't need any more ammunition.
No, I'm good.
Kyle, this was a blast. We even got to do it a second time, and it was even more fun the second time. Thank you very much for coming on, and I hope you didn't feel like we ganged up on you or anything like that. I was trying.
No, not at all.
I admire your ability to stick to your guns. I'm a classic waffler. Oh, I'm getting the slightest bit of resistance. Maybe let me reconsider my stance. But
as long as I made you think.
You made me think. You always make me think.
I think sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean, there was a solid like 10 seconds there where Alex was really thinking. There was a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But this was great. Kyle, I miss you. Let's talk about sumo sometime soon.
Yeah.
I heard
Make a giant pot of sumo soup.
Sumo soup. That's what's up.
Sumoop.
I don't know what that is. Sumoop. But good time as always. We should do it again, maybe in October or something. Who knows?
Yeah,
maybe.
absolutely.
Maybe.
I might have a lot of free time this October.
Yeah, ditto.
Now I'm sad again.
But I'm working on other projects which I could use your help on. So there.
Ooh, I like projects.
Are you working? Is that with your company, Decimated Designs?
It might be with Decimated Designs, might be with some of the local haunted houses. Might be that we've been brainstorming ways of spooking people out for the season without asking them to congregate.
Huh.
You heard it here first.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
All right. And on that note, I don't want to spoil anything, so we're gonna call it there. We got some more varying opinions to get to. So Kyle, man, thanks again for coming on. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you guys for having me.
For our next opinion, we're going to talk about a show that is on Crave TV, Crave Network, and also shows up on Hulu. It's gotten really big, really fast. I only want to see it get bigger. And one of the show's good friends, Katie, who's been on a number of times before. Hi, Katie.
Hey.
Finished or was in the middle of season 8, which came out in December of 2019, just a few months ago. And I had thoughts about her opinion, but I felt it wouldn't be correct for me to have anything to say about it. And I figured I could find someone else who would have a varying opinion, who might want to talk about it. So I got in touch with Babs. Hey, Babs.
Hello.
And I'm just going to let Katie start it off with what she thought, what her original opinion was about Letterkenny.
Nice. I feel like feel like this is Late Night with Seth Meyers, and they have that reoccurring bit where they're like, a writer explains their joke, and they bring someone out, and they're like, come on, explain what you said. Guys. No, I do want to put the caveat out there that I really like this show. I really enjoy the show. I binge watch it. I think it's a great show. But I do have this opinion about one of the main characters, or what I perceive to be one of the main characters, which is part of the conversation. Katie. I don't think that Katie is a particularly great role model, and I wonder how great the show is at representing women. Yeah. So that's kind of my thesis. I just want to remind us as we go through this that my thesis is not, I don't think Letterkenny is a good show because it has bad representation of women in it. I do think it's an enjoyable show. I think that amongst that, it has some interesting flaws. And, you know, does that mean that it's a lesser show or anything? Or should we just at least have a conversation about those kinds of viewpoints? Because like you said, Alex, you're a white man coming at a show written by a white man for white men. So is that viewpoint kind of myopic, to bring back a word from earlier? Yeah, I don't know. I keep agreeing and disagreeing with myself as I explore this, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't spend time going back through the show, watching it, specifically thinking, like, is Katie a bad role model? I'm going to find all of the examples in the show, because you can, you know, if you start to look for examples and stuff, you'll find them everywhere. And I don't want to look at the show through that lens. I just want to say that as someone who watched it, I really didn't feel great about that particular character. You know, like, it's a hangout comedy, and you watch it and there's three people kind of hanging out. Mm-hmm. And as I talked to a lot of people about this show, I asked them, like, how do you feel about Katie? And many people were like, well, you know, the show is about three friends hanging out. And I was like, well, Katie's on the bump cover. You know, when you click on the show, there's 4 people there. Do you not view her as one of the main characters? And a lot of people were like, no, I don't. She's just Wayne's sister, and that's why she's there. So, like, I don't know. It gets to be a little bit confusing for me. Yeah, I want to hang out with these guys. That's why you watch the show and you think, like, it would be so much fun to hang out with them. I do have so much in common with them, but I don't feel represented in that show in any tangible way where I feel like I could hang out with these people. I love it, but I don't belong in that world. And that's weird, to watch a show and really like it and think, man, I'm not really represented here.
I'm going to poorly abbreviate your statement where it was that you feel sometimes she's basically there to be eye candy and doesn't have a lot else going on aside from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in fact, she herself really drives that home in the reoccurring joke, is that what you appreciate about me? Because Squirrely Dan will say something like, Katie, you're really good at wrestling. Or, you know, he'll appreciate Katie for something besides her body, and she'll immediately remind him, but you also think I'm pretty sexy, right? So, like, that's kind of a shitty quality about her, isn't it? Or it kind of just makes me feel like,
Okay. Babs has been waiting patiently. I
don't want to keep talking. I want Babs to have a chance. Come in here.
No, I really want your side so I can offer my side. So I'm going to start off like, I will speak on behalf of Katie, but I'm also going to say first, she is not my favorite character.
No.
I do get your points. She is not my favorite character. Rosie is actually my favorite female character. Her and Tanis are on the same level. I think they're very interesting people. I hate Gail.
I have a lot of opinions about Gail as well.
Yeah. I think some similarities can be made between Katie and Gail, and Katie and maybe Rosie or Tanis. Like, except for Rosie, it seems like all the women are very embracing of their sexuality. Katie more so. I think because they want to bring out a little bit of that big brother trope with Wayne, even though he doesn't really do it a lot. I mean, they have stories like in the first episode, he mentions about how he came to her defense, like he knocked someone off their bike. He either did that for her or for Derry. But we see that as an adult, she can largely take care of herself, except for like an instance or two, like someone honked at her and, she was dressed and Wayne like knocked the guy out. To your point of, she reminds people that they have a crush on her. I think on the flip side, you're constantly reminded that everybody has a crush on Wayne too.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point. I think almost all characters is a heavy sexualization. Yeah, like
almost everybody at some point has had a crush on Wayne. I mean, you got representing the men. You got I'm blanking on his name. Gale. No.
Daryl.
No, the preacher dude.
Oh, Glenn.
Glenn, yeah. Like he has a crush on Wayne. Like almost every single woman that walks into the room has a crush on Wayne. It's. I think even Roald had a brief crush on Wayne.
Yeah.
So to your point of the sexuality, I mean, Katie kind of flaunts it a little bit more, but you also have Jared Kiso being straight up naked in a few scenes as Shorzy.
Yes. Gotta love Shorzy.
Oh man,
Shory's amazing.
What an amazing skater.
I hate Shorzy. I can't stand Shorzy.
You have to love hating him. It's great.
I love that.
Alex,
dance.
I'm getting Jean Ralphio vibes. Am I off base there?
No, he's definitely nothing like John Ralphio. I hate him for a different reason.
Although
I also need to kind of. Oh, by the way, I'm here. I don't know if I've even talked yet.
Disembodied voice.
I've seen 2 episodes of Letterkenny, I believe. So I'm pretty much in the dark here. I'm really just here to enjoy the show and listen to some nice, healthy debate. So, but anyways, that's the way you were talking just now, Alex. I got like Jean Ralphio vibes in your hatred of him. So I wanted to see how on or off base that was.
No, it gets painful because like Brett's also a fan of Shorzy, and sometimes I'll have Babs and Brett sending me shit, and I'm just like, no, thank you, no, I'll pass.
Yeah, I think you just need to give your balls a tug.
So is that from the show?
Yeah,
that's a Shorzy. Why don't you give your balls a tug, man?
Give your balls a tug, too, fucker.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if Katie was giving Alex some life advice.
So,
to go back to the I don't have a problem with her being sexualized and being openly sexual. I think that the show handles sexuality fairly well. There are some areas, like particularly with the character of Gale, where it starts to feel a little like a jungle fever, verging on almost racist, that this one particular character is so this way.
Yeah, the one black character has to be so cringy. I need to take a bath after. It's just like I need to get clean after Gale's lines.
I mean, I appreciate the physical performance, like her body acting, superb. Like sometimes that scene where she comes at him on the bicycle with such important news that she almost can't get off the bicycle to give him the news. Well played. But sometimes she does make me feel like we're looking at kind of like an animalistic representation of sexuality in one of the few black characters that we have. So it's like, and that's what I mean. Like there are points in which Katie makes me cringe about being a woman. And I think it's because like she doesn't have power that isn't sexual. We never see her fight. We see her kick people in the cunt. Do we actually see her fight? Do we even really see Tannis fight? There's a lot of like snapping and making people fight. And I feel like the whole town almost has a feudalistic vibe to it where Wayne is the king. And, we like Katie. We respect Katie because of her relationship to Wayne. And that's her power. She's almost like a Cersei Lannister, a Lady Macbeth. Like Lady Macbeth has tangible power to manipulate, but can't do anything on her own and is almost trapped in that world. And when she goes out to become a model, she has moderate success, but not really that much success, and winds up coming back to Letterkenny because that's really the only place where she has this power structure that benefits her. Because, I mean, what do we know about Katie? What the fuck else does she do?
Oh, and when she comes back, she brings those fat models with her too.
Yeah, And that's great use of like power and seeing a woman be strong in a sexual relationship with having two idiot like bimbos. Yeah, there are times when it does good stuff. I mean, and there are times when it tries to do good stuff that you're like, oh yeah, no, you missed it a little bit. Like having Squirrely Dan give us all of the information that his women's rights teacher tells him is cute. You get to see Squirrely Dan be kind of woke, but ultimately we're hearing all of this women's rights information from a white male character, and you're just like, oh, fuck.
I do like that it's coming from Squirrely Dan, though, because a lot of times when women put these facts forth, like Diane and Bojack, it comes off as preachy. So to hear it, unfortunately, through a man saying it, people will listen to it more. Because,
and that's called mansplaining.
Yeah. But I feel like if every time we see Katie, she's lecturing somebody about how something is said, we would like her even less. Like I'm saying, she's not my favorite character. But she to the point where you say we don't see her do anything. A lot of the fights that happen in the show are for the toughest guy in Leonard Kitty, or it's Wayne's beef, and it's not really for Katie to participate in. She does get into a few fights, and quite unfortunately, like she doesn't put up front that they are going to be physical fights. Like when she has Wayne's the confrontation with Wayne's ex, she kind of manipulates her into being there and makes it into a physical fight, and that could have been better done. But I think as the show is going to get on, we might see, or and I hope that we see that rather than the quick cunt punt, we're going to see it's a phrase, we're going to see her either being upfront with it going to be a physical fight, or she's not going to make that as a resort, because she does pull that out just absolutely randomly at times. Because she did that to I cannot remember
the hockey bunny.
Yeah, Wayne's. I cannot remember her name, and she did it to Tannis.
Was that Angie? That's Angie.
Angie. Yes.
Yeah.
Like she does fight, but she's
quick to end it.
She's quick to end it. But yeah, unfortunately, we do see her fight, just not in the best way. But everybody in the show has gotten characterization.
I have really big hopes for the beginning of the next season, because we're right at this point where everything that I'm saying could be shoved back in my face and I could be proven horribly wrong, and I desperately want to be. We see Katie right at the front of the house of the guy who cheated on her, and she went there by herself to address him and have agency, and the whole fucking town has driven behind her to fight the guy on her behalf, and I have so waiting for her to tell them, no, I got this, and handle it herself. Because if they let her, if the show just has them fight him in a big fight scene, that's what I mean. That's when it starts to feel like this main character kind of sucks.
I thought she was going to just see him and he happened to cheat on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she knows.
Oh, okay. I might have missed that part because I completely missed the whole thing with Marie Fred.
I think she found out when she got there.
Oh, okay.
Really?
So, yeah, does she confront him herself, or does she allow the town
Letterkenny spoilers.
Oh, so sorry.
Well, every single character looks like they're getting their own season for a character art. I'm hoping that this one for Katie is one where I said, she's going to be more upfront about her confrontations with people. She's not going to start it with words and then end it with a swift kick. She's just it's either going to start as a physical fight, or it's going to stay a verbal fight. And have her win that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, going back into saying, how she doesn't do anything, she is what appears to be an equal landowner with Wayne. I mean, they share the house. He never goes over financials or big things that are going to go over the farm without her presence. And that seems to be beyond a brother-sister thing, that it shows that they're equal in their assets. When they get the $5,000, they go over verbally what they want to do before they both decide, hey, we're going to have this competition. And even when Wayne gets the engagement ring, the show very specifically shows that they're going into a bank and not a jewelry store. So it looks like Wayne has already picked out the ring, and he needs the other person who owns the property to be like, okay, we need to leverage our financials in order to make this purchase.
Absolutely. And I wonder if that is because of the equal power or because that character also plays a very important moral dowsing rod role where Katie gets looked to understand and be reminding everyone that, a friend always helps when a man asks for help. She's always that character that kind of brings people back to what is considered morality, and he never really makes any decision without asking her. And that's when you feel like, oh, she's got a lot of power, but she doesn't operate outside of that for her own agency. It kind of is like this weird pedestal where the female characters are there to help the main character on their journey, almost like a magical Negro character, where Manic Pixies are just the sexist version of magical Negroes, where you just their essence in here is to just help the main character get to a realization or an emotional growth point, but do they have their own emotional growth points? And I'm hoping that the end of season 8 into 9 is an emotional growth point for that character. I want to be wrong, because when I think about complaining that this show has characters that are a little flawed or hypocritical, I think about why I hate shows written by Aaron Sorkin, where all the characters are so perfect and all the dialogue is so punchy. And that's like an uncanny valley of humanism where I'm like, no, you know what? Like, maybe they should be flawed a little bit, you know?
I gotta look up what shows he's done,
West Wing. And, I think a lot of the dialogue
Social Network.
in Social Network is a great example where, like...
Oh, so things I've never seen.
If you've ever seen Gilmore Girls, that's another great example of, like, everybody always knows what cute, pithy fucking thing to say no matter what.
God, that's so true. Did Aaron Sorkin do Gilmore Girls?
He didn't, but it's the female equivalent. So when people haven't seen his stuff, I use that as the other example.
Right.
Actually, I don't know who the fuck did Gilmore Girls. I don't know that.
Yeah,
but I get exactly, because while the stuff that I've seen from Aaron, because did Aaron Sorkin do Newsroom too? I think that was his. The stuff that I have seen by him, like I enjoy it for the most part very much. My wife and I did West Wing a couple years ago, and then Social Network's been one of my favorite movies for a while now. It's just on Netflix too, and like, but I totally get what you mean, like. If only arguments and discussions ever went that perfectly, and everyone had those beautiful responses,
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly crafted. It just doesn't happen that way.
It's the Palladino. I think they're married. Amy Sherman Palladino wrote that, and also did Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is another wonderful example of like, well, I wish we all were that cute.
It takes me 3 days, and then I'm in a shower before I come up with something remotely half that good.
There's a word
and then your shampoo bottles get it.
Yeah, well, it's a word in French. It's called esprit d'escalier, the spirit of the staircase. That's when you're walking away down the stairs. You're like, that's what it should have said.
And it's always the perfect response to, 5 minutes too late.
And that's the world that those kind of shows existed in. I don't really like that. So maybe that's why I like Letterkenny. So I'm really at an edge here where, like, Babs, I want to be wrong here.
When Wayne and Katie were doing the fundraiser, and they were seen as like equal competition for each other, even though it's a sibling rivalry. Is there anything in the matter of like they're equals in this competition? Like, there's really no way to get past them.
He goes around and just asks people honestly to contribute to the fund. She has to get the hockey guys manipulated through sexuality to get a thing, and then they have to let her win.
That's actually my least favorite episode, I think, of the series. That and the alt-right guy.
Oh God, yeah, he comes out of nowhere. That's this famous actor too. The guy from Freaks and Geeks and It's the End of the World.
Hard right,
I
Mike.
definitely agree that that Katie, that is not a glowing episode for Katie. How she just, Wayne's out all around Letterkenny raising money. I'm just gonna sit in this bar and get the hockey guys to raise the money for me. Like, that does not help her case at all.
What was weird to me, I don't know if it's just like a positioning standpoint as far as blocking goes, but she didn't move from that table. She sat at the table the entire episode. And then later on, whenever they're doing Crack an Egg, she's standing in the tech booth and like never sits down or like moves or shifts. She's just standing in the same spot, flipping the switches and taking callers. And I'm like, wouldn't you, I don't know, want to sit? It's not really a good argument. I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you're saying right there. And when I say like, what the fuck else does Katie do? I mean, like, she owns the land with them. We kind of see her choring in the scene where they're picking up rocks, although I thought that they were picking up rocks because that's fun and then you can have pet rocks. But someone who actually works in a rural environment explained to me that the combines are stopped by those, so you must do that.
Yes.
I was like, no, they're just shitting and having fun.
No, farming.
Or a lot of times when they're like, oh, we'll do some chores, she'll run inside to get them. What I'm understanding, I forget what they call it, but it's like clamato juice and vodka.
Yeah.
The Caesars, that's what it's called. It's a drink. So, I mean, like, does she have a book club? Does she play a sport? Like, what else does she do?
I think Katie is kind of written in a way that I'll make another BoJack comparison, that she's a little bit like Erica, where Erica's there and you see Katie, but they could totally have like their own like spin-off and they have their own field life just off, and then you just hear of Wayne or you hear of BoJack off in the corner, but you never actually see them. I think that she's not given a lot of background just because they have a big cast that they go through, so they can't give everybody like this whole fulfilled background, because you got the Skids, you got the natives, you got the Hicks, you got the hockey players, you got the extended hockey players, because you now have the Shamrockettes and you have Coach and all that Letterkenny stuff. And I know I'm forgetting like at least a demographic or two, but it's such a robust cast that it's very hard to give anybody really except Wayne a big background, especially now that we briefly had the French Canadians for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that was another few characters, and it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we start to apply the Bechdel test to this series of Letterkenny, and we ask ourselves questions like, why are the female characters even there? Katie is presumably a main character. She's the only character that is, I mean, with Gail, although like there's a lot of Gail trying to fuck Wayne, all the other female characters that we meet are girlfriends to Wayne. And so you look to Katie for something, and you don't find it there. And if you're a woman watching this show, or even just a non-gendered person watching this show, where you don't have a major charisma bonus and you don't use sexuality as a skill, you start to feel like, where would I fit in this world? I want to hang out with these guys. I don't know how this world, it's just a little like depressing background buzzing noise while you watch the show.
Yeah. I was going to bring up gay, but I'm like, no, that doesn't work.
Well, Mrs. McMurray and
a character who doesn't even fucking get a first name.
Yeah.
and Bonnie McMurray
and
also
Bonnie
don't fit what Casey just said either. Which
Every
I mean,
time
Mrs.
McMurray,
McMurray.
I'm like, Bonnie McMurray.
Mrs. McMurray, Melanie Scrofano, because I want her to have a first name, Mrs. McMurphy.
Well, she's not in every season because sometimes she's busy being Winona Earp.
Oh, touche. But I also like her character because she's gender fluid and she's very interesting. I love the McMurrays. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, again, there's no female character that is not using their sexuality to manipulate the characters around them. And it's almost like that's how it's the male view, this male hangout lens that Letterkenny has, where that's how women are. That's just the spots that they can occupy. And I want it to be more than that.
Yeah, I don't got a counterpoint to that. I mean, the only person who doesn't overtly use her sexuality is Rosie. Just, I mean, she's definitely in love with Wayne, but she's very subtle in her love. Like, she doesn't jump his bones all the time.
I know.
Or, yeah.
My problem with Rosie is the very first way we're introduced to Rosie is from her thighs up.
Yeah, there's a long pan over her butt. Yeah.
She comes into the camera out of her car, thighs up, and it takes about a minute to realize that is a human with a face.
I don't remember that. I'm going to look it up real quick.
Yeah.
Because they dropped off, I think Gail drops off Rosie's dog.
And the scene where they're trying to get the dogs pregnant.
And then she comes back to pick up the dog or brings the dog back. But yeah, that's definitely a tight jeans scene.
And we know, for our listener, let's point out here, there isn't a single female shown on camera in this series that isn't wearing false eyelashes or has a BMI of like 22 and below. They just don't exist in this Canadian town.
Huh.
And that's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to complain that they don't feel represented because they don't see women who are not just overtly gorgeous in a rural town in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Well, the pair of dicks were a little bit thick, but
yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the only exception I was trying to think about was the only character who does not use sexualization is Anita Dick, who is just a dick joke. Like, oh, so close.
What are they? Are they Mennonites? What is that?
I can't remember.
Mennonites.
Mennonites, or if they're Amish, they're Mennonites. Okay. I do love them. I do.
But I was bringing up the Dick sisters because I'm like they weren't like really thin, but I'm also like I don't remember.
Yeah,
I've seen this show so many times, but
they wear a lot of clothes.
And there are a couple of scenes where they're in normal clothing when you first meet them. When they're in the back of the hockey players' cars too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're a little bit. They're closer to like 22. Let's be honest. Most of the players are like at a 19% BMI.
Do we have any thoughts about the times we see Katie mothering other characters, like when she has to take care of Daryl because he got rabies, or when
that's another acceptable way to have a woman be. She could be sexual, she could be an example of morality, and she could be a mother.
I also wonder if that was shoved off on her just because at the time they didn't have that robust. Well, they had a bigger cast, but they didn't really have anybody who would take care of Derry, and that was kind of shoved off on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also kind of softens the character. Like, she's the one who decides to have the very soft birthday for him because he never really had a birthday. And, like, yeah.
No, that was with both of them because I think she said hell no and he said hard no.
He's always had soft birthday parties, and he was asking for not to have a soft birthday party.
Oh, no. They just keep
Yeah, it was a panel of three. It was Katie, it was Wayne, and it was Squirrely Dan, even though Squirrely Dan, even though he's been friends with them since they were kids, has never experienced a soft birthday. I guess he was our audience replacement.
I feel like that's the, like, why are two cops explaining what a law is to each other?
Yeah.
But they might have retconned that, because the Letterkenny child show, the Little Kennys,
yeah.
I don't think that came out right away. I think that came out afterwards. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, that all came out. I hate it. I can't stand what they do with Aries' voice. I can't stand that fake high-pitched lisp of the bullies.
I fucking hate kids.
That too. But it's just like, oh wow, they also redid the entire soft birthday episode, but they made him 5 years old this time.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed unnecessary. It was kind of like just milking it out for something else.
Yeah, it's just like 10 minutes of,
hey, is this voice annoying? Because you're gonna have to listen to this, but with like 4 other people doing the same thing, and
I can't.
I'm already annoyed.
You don't like that? You don't like it when someone just does a different voice for some reason? You don't like it when someone just does a mildly different voice to be a brand new character that's not enjoyable? Oh, how about that? Interesting.
I somehow feel like this is a Last of Us reference, and I don't understand.
That's who Shorzy is. It's just Jared doing another voice.
No, he's not doing the fake high-pitched lisp. He's just raising his voice and giving it a slight accent.
It's just as bad.
I think my favorite thing about Shorzy is his amazing capacity to skate very well, but for the purpose of douchery.
Yeah.
Like, God, that's some amazing skating in later episodes. Such an asshole.
To go like 4 steps and then snow somebody, it is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was great. I love when he snows people.
You put me on skates, I'm like a dog standing up in the back of the car. Every muscle tenses.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same.
But if you are looking for supplementary Letterkenny stuff, I feel like K. Trevor Wilson, the guy who plays Squirrely Dan, has some stand-up that you can get, and it's
Brett has showed me all of the stand-up.
Very funny. It's very good. Yeah.
It was like because I got Brett to fully watch Letterkenny during our December vacation, and it's like, oh my god, if because I think we were on like season 4 or something. It's like if we start at season 1 now, by the time we get at season 7, we have 2-day break, and then season 8 comes out, and we're like, we're gonna do this. So that's exactly what we did.
That's great.
And then in those 2 days, we just watched everything K. Trevor Wilson.
Yeah, this is fantastic. He apparently switched his name. His name is Trevor K. Wilson, but it was already registered, so he put the K in front.
Huh.
I will never have that issue with my name. That's what happens when your mom likes French cartoon characters. I got so many things to say about that. Have an OMV episode about why you shouldn't name your kids after fucking TV show characters, and I will scream at every parent.
I don't see how that could go wrong.
Yeah.
How many parents out there do you think are deeply regretting naming their daughter Khaleesi?
Oh my god.
I taught a lot of Sansas. I really did teach a lot of Sansas.
There's I'm in the Cosmere subreddit, and there's so many people that want to name their kid Kaladin because the main character is Kaladin. And I'm like, I'm gonna punch you in the face. Because if you see a name Kaladin and like the last name is Smith, you're like, what fucking country is that?
Kaladin?
I still, to this day, I am 34 now. I've been incorrectly saying I'm 33 because I had a quarantine birthday, so it doesn't count.
Oh, me too. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday. I still will have the random security checks because Babette is not a real name. And I'm like, fuck you. It's French for Barbara.
Huh.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's fun trying to convince a computer system to allow you to enter your name because it doesn't think it has enough letters to be a name.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Minimum name, 3 cases. We can't accept your first name, needs 3 letters. And I'm like, well, fuck.
We're not getting into what my middle name actually is, but my middle initial is K, so because I'm a photographer, I say my middle name is Camera. Because it's actually less stupid than my actual middle name. Like, what's a cam stand for? Camera. My parents just can't spell.
Models are dumb enough to believe that. It's fine.
Okay.
I hope they do something with Bonnie McMurray's character because her fawning over Wayne and dating Derry briefly while Wayne was engaged, that needs to go. Like, her crush is very creepy.
It's sad. It is, and it's almost sad to the point in which, like, he kind of leads her on, but doesn't totally say no. But he also says, like, maybe she'll just get a little older, and then I'll be interested. But then even, like, in the hot tub episode, everyone wanted to get a little Bonnie McMurray.
Well, he doesn't say if she gets older that he'll be interested. Like, Katie is, I'm going to assume about 2 or 3 years younger.
Mm-hmm.
And Katie was expressing interest in Bonnie, and it's like, let her age up a little. Yeah. Because I think Bonnie just turned 17 or 18, so it's someone in their 20s approaching someone in their late teens. But that was also directed at Derry and Squirrely Dan as well, because all 3 were they had that creepy competition. I'm like,
yeah, and that's what I mean. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be in a hot tub with 3 people who are interested in me while I'm interested in the 4th. Like, that's a whole lot of nope right there.
Yeah, and that's when you're like, is this comedy or is this like, oh, this is a traumatic experience for people to live through?
Generally, any episode that takes place in the McMurray's house, I'm not a huge fan of because they are very clearly open and everybody else is clearly not. And
Yeah.
just the pushing boundaries I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, I like that they have a character like that. And like in the episode where they're really worried that Mrs. McMurray doesn't know that Mr. McMurray has those sex trips, you find out that she also does. And you're like, oh, good for them. That's a really, and they're dancing and they're so in love that it inspires Wayne to ask the inappropriate woman to marry him because it doesn't work out well. But, you know, it's sweet in that situation. But
I do
yeah,
have the
like
theory that they
push.
don't.
Okay, wait.
I have the theory that
This was. I'm sorry, Babs. My girlfriend brought this up because she had mentioned it, and I mentioned it to you. She thinks that every time Mr. and Mrs. McMurray talk about their other escapades, they're actually just talking about each other. So every time they say like,
drunk.
"Oh, they went to Florida and banged these other people," it's like that was just each other.
Yeah.
Oh, so she's got one of those Saved by the Bell theories.
I don't follow.
Oh, the theory of Saved by the Bell is that it is all like he died. He's just dreaming all of this shit.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it starts out in a
How about
classroom in
that?
Indiana, and then he winds up in California and is really cool, and his brother's gone, and stuff gets weird.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
If you really look at it, you're like, it's like The Land Before Time, where you're just like, oh, I know when they died exactly in the film.
Oh, no.
But I do like the McMurrays, and like, you know, the show is very well received for how quotable it is, and like the number of times I'm holding my cat and I look at my husband and I tell him to like, look at him, Wade, look at him, little beaver eyes, like. They're great characters. They are very pushy with their sexuality, and I wonder, you know, like the show is kind of just generally pushy with sexuality. So, am I blaming Katie specifically, or is that kind of something that a lot of characters could be flawed for?
Yeah, they treat sexuality very weirdly. Like, we talked a little bit about Gail.
Mm-hmm.
But the actress is actually hilarious. Like the one time where she has to like run and get on the bike and bike at the same time. Like, how did you not fall?
And I've seen her in other stuff too. She's a really good actress. Yeah, outside of that,
She reminds me of an oversexed Napoleon Dynamite.
had more of a dichotomy, I wouldn't feel so bad about how jungle fevery it feels. It's like, ugh, it makes me feel really uncomfortable.
It would technically be African Canadian.
Yeah, yes, that's true. That's true. But like, she is very sexualized. There are points where she's just humping inanimate objects, and that really feels minstrelly.
It also, another problem with we're switching this over to get we're hijacking your podcast.
Sorry.
That I found it was very insulting that like the one black character, everybody says that she has like terrible body odor and that she's just kind of gross. Like in the first episode, no, the second, they give her the mints. No, it was the first episode. They give her the mints and everybody's talking about like how her breath can knock somebody over.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of episodes later, the episode where Derry does get bit, she's on the juice cleanse and she's like, I have to shit constantly. Or I forget the exact line. It's like, why the one black character you have, are you pushing this off on her? Just making her just, getting in people's faces because she wants to bone them, and then just making her just smell and just be disgusting to even want to be around.
Mm-hmm.
That's
kind of how I feel about Katie's sexualism and the bad role model feeling. Because like, there are other female characters, and there are other black characters in the show. I actually went back because I was like, man, are there? And of course,
Bradley.
they're the characters she's related to, and then you're like, wait a minute, are they implying that all black people are related in Canada? And no, actually, more than half of the adult male hockey team is black in some way. So like, Okay, but when we get a major character or a major player who is always this way, it rings more true and gets in your face more than the good representations of minor characters outside of that. So that's why I feel so pissed off about Katie. Whereas you're right, like Rosie's a pretty good character, and you know, in her own right, Tanis is a wonderful character, and that actress is actually speaking her native tongue, which is fucking amazing too. So like that's really good. There's ways where the show is good, and there are ways where the show is flawed. It's rough.
Before we wrap up, this was a lot of fun. I have a lot more to learn and look at. And our friend of the show, Joe, had told me about the actress that plays Tanis and her sister and how incredibly badass she is. There was a weird hostage riot situation, and her sister, the actress that plays Tanis, her sister, had like taken a bayonet to the chest, protecting her from bounties. And she's also a former Olympian too. It's incredible.
What?
Yeah, check her out.
Yeah.
There's a whole wiki.
Oh, yeah. That stuff is in the Letterkenny subreddit. You would love to see those pictures.
Oh, there's pictures? Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
So, this was fun. This was some good varying opinions. Getting back to our roots. We haven't done this in a while.
Nice.
A nice civil discussion between people that I don't know anything about it. So you're both winners in my book. There's no winners. It doesn't matter. Anyways, thank you both for coming on and doing this. This was a lot of fun. It was a great excuse to have the opportunity to talk to both of you because it's been too long, because quarantine and all that stuff. But I hope everyone is continuing to be safe and having good quarantine times. Yay! I just saw the more excuse to watch more Letterkenny.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in this place by myself. I haven't seen anybody except the utility workers who fixed my street today.
Oh.
I'm going nuts.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Jesus.
You can do it. I believe in you. But yeah, that's it. That was fun. Again, ladies, thank you so much for coming on.
Always love being on the show.
Thank you.
Our opinions varied. What did you think? Let us know if you have feelings about wrestling, about what Kyle talked about what I talked about, what JR talked about. If you have feelings on Letterkenny, and if they represent all their characters properly, or well, or not that well, or let us know if you even like the show. But a lot happened, and I feel it was a little unexpected. Like, every time you think you can make up an argument in your head, and you go, oh, I know what they're going to talk about. And then it's not what they talk about. That happened to me twice today.
It never, ever, ever goes the way you think it's going to, unless it's with your shampoo bottles. Unless you're arguing with your shampoo bottles in the shower, it's not going to go. It's not going to go the way you expected. Which is this episode was a prime example because we both thought that because I am kind of a Letterkenny noob. Anyone who was listening to the last 45 minutes will understand that. But when it came to especially the wrestling thing, it went in a direction that neither of us really prepared for. In a good way. It was stimulating. It was fun. I love everyone we talked to today. It was a good time. I
had to address things that I don't normally have to address. It's like when I'm going to defend wrestling, I'm defending I know the storyline's bad. Yeah, I know when they have to fight over a girl, it's stupid. It is. You you could hear that moment happen. yeah, because it's hard to expect to. I'm about to disagree with you, and then they say something that you agree with. Yeah. So it was a big thanks to Kyle for coming on. Also for Babs and KT for that was one of the greatest discussions that I was ever witness to. It was a lot of fun. And hopefully we can do it again sometime. And do yourself a favor, keep an open mind, because maybe you'll have your opinion changed. Exactly.
Exactly. But it's time to end. We have talked, we have debated, we have varied opinions, and that's all we got for this episode. So for Kyle, KT, and Babs, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And this has been episode 403 of Opinions May Vary.